The Halloween franchise is one of the most iconic horror franchises in history, and not only is it notorious for its famous killer Michael Myers, it's also famous for its iconic theme music provided by John Carpenter. More to the fact, if it wasn't for the Halloween music, the Halloween film may not have been as popular as it is today. And not just the main theme, but the soundtrack as a whole. As a famous story told by John Carpenter, an executive first watched the movie without any music and he hated it. He thought it was boring. But then when the music was added, it created a different atmosphere. It brought the movie to life. And that, I think, is a staple of what made Halloween so iconic. When Halloween returned back in 2018 to only follow the original 1978 movie, John Carpenter returned for the music along with his son Cody Carpenter and Daniel Davis, and they provided a 21 track for the original motion picture. But following the motion picture's release, there was also an expanded edition where there was now 45 tracks provided for the movie. I mean, we've got some amazing tracks in the 2018 movie, such as The Grind, Prison Montage, The Shape returns when he's going through the entire town, killing one by one, and let's not forget the most iconic sound piece throughout the entire movie is when he hunts down Allison. And yes, that was actually done with a violin bow on a guitar. The boys working on this soundtrack knew what they were doing. They were experts in their field, and it's definitely one of the defining parts of the entire movie. While keeping true to the original soundtrack, they just amplify it even more and it gets even more scarier. And the same applies for the Halloween Kills movie. I listened to the soundtrack before I watched the movie because I was just that excited, and what I was hearing was just the music getting even more darker, more intense, and I just couldn't wait for these tracks to be placed in the movie because, well, I had high expectations for the Halloween Kills movie. Unfortunately, those expectations were shattered because of sloppy writing with exposition just basically dashed all over the place, and unfortunately the soundtrack got the worst of it. I felt like the soundtrack was provided so expertly by John Carpenter and his crew. They actually timed it perfectly with the scenes, but for some reason in the editing room the soundtrack got messed around with and was reshuffled to best suit the editor's choice rather than the original intent by John Carpenter, Cody Carpenter and Daniel Davis, because as we saw in the 2018 behind the scenes featurette, they were watching the scenes at the same time, so they knew what they were doing. They knew to time it perfectly with scenes and shots, which kind of chords to hit when certain moments happened. This is why 2018 worked so well, because when it comes to movies especially, the soundtrack has to stand out. It is what makes it work, and it's also what makes a scene work. You want certain moments to hit with beats, because it's like a stage, it's like a play. You know, you want to have a rhythm, and if you fall out that rhythm, and if you completely go off course, it can sometimes fall apart and unfortunately make a scene which, you know, starts out being really epic, but then it falls flat because, well, they decided to cut half of the music out. Most of the tracks in the movie are kind of timed right. Some of them are out of sync. I would have placed certain tracks a little bit ahead or behind, and there are some tracks that are also cut a little bit shorter than they should be. But the one track for me that really does unfortunately get the worst of it is the Unkillable track, which was actually released before the movie came out. John Carpenter on his YouTube channel was releasing a few of the tracks, and the reception for the music was positive. Everyone was excited to hear these in the movie, and the Unkillable track is placed when the Shape goes up against Allison and Cameron in the Michael Myers house. Oh wait, that's my name. So let's diagnose this track. I'm going to compare the film version to the original track version, because in the film version it starts out pretty good, starts out like the original track. As soon as Allison falls downstairs, the track goes on a bit of a discourse. It completely loses its rhythm and becomes something entirely new. And there is a repetitive loop that keeps playing that's stopping the track from actually continuing on. It's like the track is just stuck and it's not going. And I actually placed the track on the scene, and it just baffles me how the scene and the track fit so perfectly together compared to the film version. John Carpenter knew this. Like I said, the boys planned this out. They shot it perfectly, syncing it up with the track. And one thing that kind of infuriates me about this film version is that when Michael actually starts to go downstairs to face Allison, it's like the music just catches up with itself, and it's not even at the start of the main beat, it's just halfway through the main exciting beat. And carrying on, there is a new music sound effect added for when Michael actually snaps the neck of Cameron. In the track version, it's very different compared to the film version. Here are the comparisons.
No! No!
In Carpenter's version, it feels like the music is actually turning his head itself. There's something more eerie and dark about Carpenter's cut compared to the film cut, because the film version is just like a simple sound effect, like something bad has happened. It's just a simple doo-doo, you know, but in Carpenter's, he actually twists that music and actually makes it feel like the music itself is twisting his neck. And I was just so amazed how Carpenter's version syncs up with this scene so perfectly. And you may be wondering, why does this matter? Well, number one, the Unkillable track is amazing, and I wish it saw its fullest potential in this movie, because while this movie has a lot of gore, has a lot of blood, a lot of good iconic scenes, but unfortunately the music has been kind of treated as an afterthought, when the music actually should be a part of the same journey as the scene, part of a rhythm. And I don't understand from a filmmaker's point of view why they would want to shadow that, because while they are getting gold material from John Carpenter himself, he has structured the track that best suits your scene, and he has given you additional material. But with this Unkillable track, they have cut a majority of the material and instead going for this loop track. I don't know if it's whether to make the dialogue more hearable, but I mean, this is an intense scene, but this just kind of lowers it to another level and just kind of makes the track feel like it's stuck. Nothing's really at stake, because if the music is calm, then the characters must be calm. It's like, no, the characters are actually in a massive panic. You know, one of them is near edge of death, and the other one is downstairs screaming in agony. I will actually make an edit. I will place Carpenter's original Unkillable track over this scene, but I'll make it an unlisted video, so you'll have to click on the link in the description below or in the card above, because obviously of copyright reasons, and I really want to show you guys what the scene is like with the actual track, because when I first laid them together, I was just amazed. I was just like, look at this. I was showing my friends, I was like, this syncs up perfectly, and they couldn't believe it either. They were like, oh my god, you're right, it does. Why did they change it? But don't get me wrong, there are some moments throughout this movie where the music does actually sync up kind of perfectly. Like the next scene after that, the track Payback is all there. So this movie is capable of syncing the track to the actual scenes themselves, but for some reason Unkillable had a different story, and I don't understand why. I think it broke the scene, and I wonder what the boys might have felt like after watching this movie. I know there's a lot of videos of people talking about the actual film itself for its plot and characters, but I thought I'd do a different video and actually talk about the music, because I felt like the music actually did suffer a lot, and it's not something a lot of people have been talking about. And I don't know, I just felt like an alien, because I was actually explaining this to my friends about it, and they were like, well, you should make a video about that because you're so passionate about it. And I'm passionate about music, and I love soundtracks. Soundtracks are like my go-to, you know, and especially with Halloween. When I heard the 2018 Halloween soundtrack, I was just mesmerized by it. I think John Carpenter is a fantastic artist, you know, along with Daniel Davis and his son as well. Like, they clearly know their craft. And for me, what makes a scene work is the music. The music and the scene go hand in hand. It's what makes it 10 times more memorable. It's like you can act out the scene in your head because you also know the beats of the music, because you know the cues on when to act. And when I hear a good scene with great music layered on top, I get mesmerized. That scene sticks in my head forever. You know, there's loads of great examples I could point out within the Transformers movies, as I'm well known for the Transformers on my channel. So if you are a horror fan and you just watched this video based on my analysis, be sure to subscribe because I am a big Halloween franchise fan. I am a big fan of Michael Myers, and I hope to do more videos kind of analysing Halloween Kills actually, because I have a lot of thoughts about the movie. I just wanted to get the music one out of the way, just because it's a video that's not really out there, you know, not a lot of people talking about it other than comment sections. And for more videos just like this, be sure to subscribe, click that notification bell to get all updates instantly. This has been Common and Cam, and until the next video, goodbye.